Hello, this is Michael. I know there are millions of podcasts out there today, yet it's my hope you find the conversations we have on flipping the table different from what you hear other places. My goal is always to get to the root of what motivates my guest and how their work is shaping food, farming, and the future. These conversations are one important reason I remain an optimistic realist. The first two seasons have focused on people and places across the nation. Yet that's about to change. In 2021, we will focus on specific projects that involve my organization, Roots of Change, and our many allies. We will, of course, continue to converse with smart, articulate, and dedicated people. But they will be talking about projects in California that are on the very cutting edge of efforts to transform food and farming into the foundation for community health and resilience. We can only do this work of unveiling the future with your support. So I'm asking those of you who enjoy the podcast to make a donation. Please go to our website, rootsofchange.org, and hit the donate button on the homepage. Roots of Change is a project of the Public Health Institute, our nonprofit fiscal sponsor. Your donation will help cover our costs of production and distribution. And if you like our program, please offer a rating or comment on the platform that you use to listen. Your actions will allow us to keep the podcast going another season. I'm happy to volunteer my hours, but I need to pay the team. Bridget, Doris, and Patrick make it possible for Flipping the Table to go forward. So please hit the donate button on the rootsofchange.org website. Thank you. And enjoy the holidays, and may 2021 bring you health and positivity in a time of great change.
Flipping the table.
No matter one's politics, home region, age, religion, or philosophy, we all seem to agree that 2020 was one terrible year. I hear that assessment frequently these days as we approach the end of it, and so be it. I also see some silver linings. I sense that as a nation we are quieter, less peripatetic, more rooted in our communities. I see more reflectiveness, interest in dialogue, and commitment to anti-racism work among privileged whites. More people are shopping for healthy local food, cooking at home, growing gardens, and preserving the harvest. The artists are hard at work creating and distributing content that inspires us to feel what's real and what is wrong, and how to work harder to repair the damaged webs of relationship within the natural world and human communities. Now, I'm not denying the rage that millions of people carry and seek to act out on those they consider somehow a threat. Yet the result of the election confirms that they remain in the minority. As a nation, we have much work to do to ensure it remains that way. My faith in humanity, while questioned for a period, has been reaffirmed as I reflect on what I have seen transpire. In light of my assessment of this year, I wanted to end Season 2 with someone I feel very inspired by, someone who gives me hope. Her name is Naima Penniman. She is a multi-talented artist who has combined visual art, music, and particularly spoken word poetry to add energy to the transformation underway. Naima is devoted to subverting injustice, igniting imagination, and cultivating collaborations that elevate the healing of our earth, ourselves, our communities, lineages, and descendants. I see Naima as someone who reveals or reflects a healthier future for the planet, all life forms, including people, no matter their zip code, place of birth, skin color, age, sexual preference, or gender. We begin our episode with Naima's performance of a poem titled Awaken, and then we explore her origins, work, and vision for the future. We end with another poem that evokes the power and magic of soil, seeds, and the possibility of abundance. I trust you will feel the gift of beauty that Naima brings with the humility, clarity, and honesty that flows from her in this final Flipping the Table conversation of 2020. A very challenging but enlightening year.
We are in the wake of a great shifting. Awaken. You better free your mind before they illegalize thought. There's a war going on. The first casualty was truth, and it's inside you. You were born right now for a reason. We can be whatever we give ourselves the power to be. And right now, we need dream weavers, bridge builders, truth sayers, light bearers, food growers, wound healers, trailblazers, life lovers, peace makers. Give what you most deeply desire to give. Every moment you are choosing to live or you are waiting. Why would a flower hesitate to open? Now is the only moment. Raindrop, let go. Become the ocean. Possibility is as wide as the space we create to hold it. This is the moment when we gather up our fallen angels and build a temple invincible. We've been hibernating below the surface of the world, growing roots, dreaming of sun, thirsting for rain. We sprout, crack concrete, overcome the bullets and toxic exhale of a machine built to kill. We rise like sunshine. The shadows are memory of the struggle it took to lift our heads above drowning. We breathe, exhale the sky full of stars, pregnant with moon, trace the constellations in the shape of our revelation for tomorrow. This tomorrow has no name, but we are calling her forth. This tomorrow is not the same as yesterday, but she is as ancient as the world. We are ready to light. We are ready to live, ready to hold each other against the rim of existence. Because they who build concrete against the corners of our hearts need to feel our resistance like a million dandelions cracking sidewalks apart, reminding your runaway child there is no place that love cannot find you. There is no place that love cannot find you. There is no place that love cannot find you.
Wow. Naima Penniman, thank you very much for opening this very special program of Flipping the Table with my favorite spoken word poet in the world right now, Naima Penniman, who is the sister of Leah Penniman. Many people remember we interviewed her last year for the show. And Naima is part of the Climbing Poetry. Is your one of your performing titles? Is that correct?
That's right.
And you will soon be participating in this year's Bioneers Conference, as you've done in the past, in mid-December. Why don't you just give people a little breakdown about what you'll be doing there, so that they will be primed to hear about it and watch what you did or do.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm honored to be having this conversation with you, and certainly honored to be presenting again at Pioneers 2020, this first time in a virtual format. And this year I will be debuting a poem that I wrote specifically inspired by the theme of this year's conference, Beyond the Great Unraveling, Weaving the World Anew. And I'm also grateful to be moderating a panel called BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, People of Color Leaders Sharing Food Sovereignty Strategies, with my beloved womb and soul sister, Leah Penniman, farmer and co-founder of Soulfire Farm, along with Mohawk seed keeper and farmer Rowan White, and Reverend Herbert Brown, who is the founder of the Black Church Food Security Network. And this is all taking place on December 13th as part of the Pioneers Conference.
Wow, that is a great lineup. What an interesting, wonderful, inspiring conversation. I'm sure that will be, and I will not miss that. And so, what I'd love to do today. I mean, this is we're not in new territory, but we're doing something we have not done before, which is to have a working artist on the program, um, talking about the linkages between art, farming, food justice, social justice, racial justice. And I'll just let the listeners know that I first heard your poetry about a year ago at Occidental Arts and Ecology Center, where you came with your sister and your colleague Alicia Garcia, right,
Mm-hmm.
from Climbing Poetry, and you performed several spoken word pieces at that time, and I was overwhelmed. I was weeping. It was so beautiful, and the thing that I realized is, why it was so touching is it's so inspiring when you're in the trenches working with people on trying to change the world. It is a difficult struggle. it's and
Yes.
and when you hear someone coming with the images that you just shared about the possibilities, um, the the need for strength and the possibility of strength and the power of love, it actually rejuvenates you. And that's why I thought here at the end of this year, the hardest year that I remember in my 62 years, that we would end our year with you because it is inspiring. So thank you. Um,
Mm.
and let's begin, with your origins. Like, how did you get to poetry and performance and farming? Well, how did that's an incredible combination. How did it all begin for you?
Well, thank you so much for affirming the success of my intention, which is to help keep us inspired in times where we are up against some unthinkable obstacles and really tasked with such important work. Like our generation, those are all of us who decided to be alive right now, have an immense responsibility to help to create the bridge towards a future that is livable and breathable for us all. And my inspiration for creating art, for writing lyrics, is to help motivate us, to help keep us focused, help keep us connected to our hearts and to each other, to help channel messages from the natural world that I feel like is a source of wisdom and inspiration for us all. And also to tell the stories that so often go missing or mangled in mainstream media, that are the stories and the voices that are too often underheard, to make sure that my voice can serve to support in amplifying the struggles of the communities that I belong to and that I'm accountable to, in a way that really motivates us to all stay engaged. And I can say for myself that creativity has always been a tool for my own personal healing, my own personal resilience. From a very young age, I have both been very activated around wanting to help better my community and make a difference in the world around me, and also having a lot of fervor for being creative and really recognizing creativity as the antidote to destruction, as the opposite of the violence that I saw around me in so many levels, and feeling like when I was in my creativity, that was the closest I felt to spirit. Right? Taking advantage of this, creative gift that I feel like all of us that are part of creation has, and it feels like a way of collaborating with the rest of creation towards creating something meaningful. And I remember as a child, my sister Leah and I beginning our collaborations in service of the earth from a very young age. We grew up having access to a beautiful forest that I think instilled a deep sense of reverence in us for the natural world, really helped us feel that we were members of creation, not masters of creation. And so as we became conscious of deforestation, as we became aware in third grade about the threats of global warming, we started organizing our peers in elementary school, petitioned the principal to start a recycling program. And when he said, nah, we couldn't afford it with too much too much of us to handle. We said we're going to do it ourselves, and we saved up our allowance to get a big old trash bin that we could put in the cafeteria and encourage all of our peers to put their bottles and cans and other paper in there. And we would drag it home on the school bus, rinse it out in our driveway, and bring it to recycle ourselves. And any 5-cent redemption we get, we'd add up to buy postage stamps so we could make letters to people who we'd handpick out of the phone book with our 10 prescriptions of how to contribute to saving the earth.
Wow.
This is a small example of many of just the sense of, okay, it's up to us. We all have to do our one small part. And when we all say yes to that and that weaves together, we can truly shift the story that we're walking into. And I felt fired up about, really identifying the greatest ways that I can align my gifts, my talents, my energy, my life force with the things that I care about. And that looks a number of ways, from poetry to seed saving to teaching to giving body work and counseling. So it's all of the ways that I have said yes to a calling that I feel like is calling us all to do our part to help heal the world.
Wow. A beautiful story. And I, as I was listening, I was thinking, wow, what a great family you've come from. I can only imagine that, I imagine that your parents had some influence on the shaping
Oh,
of your
yes.
values. They must be incredible folks.
Absolutely. And I would love to name them. I am the child of Adele Smith Penniman and Keith Allen Penniman, who have shaped so much of my worldview. And I imagine similarly for my siblings. I'm also blessed to be the sibling of Alan Penniman, my younger brother, who's making waves in Detroit as an urban designer and planner. And yeah, both my parents were involved in anti-racist organizing. My mother was very active in the civil rights movement, part of SNCC and involved in Freedom Summer and mentored by Dr. King.
Wow, I'm getting chills.
My father, who is a European descent white ally of, an avid anti-Black racism, was very involved in the anti-racist struggle, and also a war resistor, an environmentalist. And I feel that they raised us with an awareness of the world around us. They taught us to see and be able to, taught us to be able to see with a critical and compassionate eye to our larger communities that we're a part of, and also the relationship to the earth that they afforded us, really making a choice to move from the city to an acre of land in the middle of a pine forest and live in a trailer as we were growing up, chopping our own wood, catching fish out of the lake, and, growing some of our own food also really helped shape the deep reverence and connection that is core to who I've become.
Fabulous. It certainly has resulted in, I think, a gift for our movement. So that is a welcome reminder of how important parenting is and families are to where people end up going. So, it's a jump, but I think it would be good to get into Soulfire Farm, where you are now the co-director or head of education there, and co-founder with your sister and others of that collective farm and community building facility, and what you do there, so people know and put you in context with that.
I'd be happy to talk about Soulfire Farm. We are an Afro-Indigenous community farm on 80 acres of land on Mohican territory, upstate New York. And this farm was the vision and the love child of my sister Leah and her partner Jonah 10 years ago. And they are the co-founders and co-directors that started as a small family farm and then grew little by little through apprenticeships and mentoring, and then training, building a team. Now we are an organization and part of a larger movement. And I'm the program director currently, not a co-director. Larissa Jacobson is the third co-director for our organization. And our work is really centered on three main things. One is to feed our community while stewarding this land using regenerative agricultural practices that have been passed down to us from our African and indigenous ancestors so that we are able to restore biodiversity here, increase the topsoil depth, capture carbon from the atmosphere and put it back into the soil where it belongs, using cover cropping and rotational grazing and diversified crops and livestock, silvopasture. We're able to grow vegetables, fruits, mushrooms, honey, as well as pasture-raised livestock. And we provide that to our community who is living in conditions of extreme food scarcity. So 90% of the harvest that we produce on this land goes directly at no cost to those who are living under food apartheid, who are survivors of mass incarceration, who are refugees or new immigrants. And we do this through our Solidarity Share program, which is a direct delivery from our farm to people's doorsteps, as well as through our institutional partners, including our church community, including the Refugee Center, including the Freedom Food Alliance. The second really important part of our mission is to help train and equip the next generation of Black, Indigenous, and people of color farmers, and to restore a sense of dignity and agency in relationship to the food system, knowing that the food system in this country has been based on exploited labor and also stolen land. So we are working through our programs to pass on the history and wisdom, the agricultural genius in our lineages that transcend the last 400 years of slavery and sharecropping and convict leasing and migrant guest worker programs that degrade the people who are closest to the earth, that do arguably one of the most important roles, which is to grow our food. And so we're doing education both around uprooting racism in the food system as well as the very tangible, like this is how you do intercropping, this is how you feed the soil and restore soil health. So we teach everything from, agroforestry to how to mulch and use cover crops to restore soil health, to how to raise your own goats and sheep and pasture-raised poultry through our program. Mm-hmm. And we also have youth programming. We do a youth rites of passage program and have multi-generational programs that are all about, restoring our relationship to the land.
Wow.
And the third part of our mission, I'll say briefly, is really around movement building. Mm-hmm. And it's about collaborating with our regional, national, and even global networks to help to heal a broken food system. And that looks like contributing to policy like the Green New Deal, the Breathe Act, as well as the new 2020 Black Farmers Bill that's coming out, in 2021, as well as catalyzing reparations and rematriation of land for Black and Indigenous people, and working on campaigns to increase dignity for farm workers. So we're also really trying to help shape and guide and strengthen our movements in collaboration with so many other grassroots leaders in this work.
Amazing. That's an amazing array, a palette of healing work that is so important to the future of the country. And so thank you very much for describing that for people. I think some may remember that we talked to your sister about her book, Farming While Black, which includes you in different sections and the work that you do, and pays tribute to you actually in the pages of it. Yeah, it's an incredible story. I mean, Occidental Arts and Ecology is another kind of version of this healing work that's being done by different communities and farm communities, planned communities, or intentional communities around the country, and community farms. And so we've been covering a lot of those this year because I think they're like the seeds of the future in my view. And so I was wondering about the Wild Seed Community Farm and Healing Village. Is that connected to soul food, or is that a different activity?
Yes, Wild Seed Community Farm and Healing Village is both connected and separate. We're sibling projects. And the vision for Wild Seed really came from inside of our training programs. And we have, I'm trying to get my number right, we have about 1,000 people go through our on-farm programs every year,
Wow.
aspiring Black, Indigenous, and people of color growers who are coming to live with us for a week and skill up on farming and the reclamation of land. And my heart is so full in these programs to experience the collective wisdom and collective joy and reclamation that we're able to experience. And I thought, as we leave this program with this renewed hope and golden vision for our futures and possibility on life on land, I know more than ever we need land to belong to. And we're living in a nation that is more racially skewed than ever before when it comes to land ownership. In fact, 98% of the rural land that can grow food in this country is controlled and owned by the descendants of European colonists.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 1% is Black owned or Indigenous owned. And we are aware that in order to have dignified relationships to land would require massive redistribution of the incredible resource that land is and provides in terms of sustenance and sanctuary for our communities. And so I began organizing with other folks in my community to say, we need to have a village where we can co-steward land and create a community farm model where many growers can be supported in starting their own projects on land, whether that's, growing indigenous corn or growing medicines for our communities, or having space to do healing sanctuary work for queer and trans people who've experienced violence, feel safe outside and in ritual together. So many visions were pouring out of us as we had these conversations of what would be possible if we had land that we could belong to. And through a courageous and powerful conversation I had with someone who had inherited stolen wealth that was passed down through generations of their family, had made a commitment for the radical redistribution of wealth in their lifetime, and made a gift to purchase the land that Wild Seed is now on. And we formed an intentional community to co-steward this resource with a commitment to intergenerational responsibility to be able to pass this down to more and more people who have been dispossessed from land. And we just celebrated our 5th birthday and have so much to celebrate of what has already happened in these last 5 years, and an even bolder vision of what's to come. And so I'm grateful for Wild Seed being one of many seeds that has been pollinated by the work, not only of Soulfire, but of many other Black and Indigenous leaders in this work that are actually propagating all over, enlivened that so many of our alumni, for example, have gone on to start their own land co-ops and farms, everything from percussion farms in the Northwest to people y alimentos in the Bronx, and all over Chicago, New Orleans, of people finding ways to be in partnership with land for the healing that our people and our ecosystem so deeply need.
Wow. Another incredible thing. Um, really beautiful development over the last 5 years, and I know that as you suggest, as you described, it's happening in many other places. So there's a lot of hope in that too. So let's start talking about let's focus on climbing poetry, how that got started, how you joined up with Alexa Garcia, your partner who you often perform with. And actually, as I read more and more about your history and your biography, I mean, you are really, there's multiple ways that you express art. It's not just spoken word. You sing. I've looked at the videos that you guys have done with different partners. That I thought were you did something a wonderful thing in Hawaii with Leah Song that was really great. I guess she's from a group called Rising Appalachia. So you've
Mhm.
done a lot of different things. So why don't we just get into that and talk about how that all began and where you see it going?
Thank you for the opportunity to share so much of my heart work. So yes, Alicia Garcia has been my partner in rhyme for 16 years now.
Wow.
We met when I was in college, an undergrad at Sarah Lawrence, and um, we were very, very, very enlivened, lit up by the synergy that we had in terms of deep devotion to movement building and social justice, and also so much passion around the arts and the potential for art and culture to really serve to help you shift our paradigms, to help to inspire people to join the movement. Like Jim Jordan says, the role of the poet is to make the revolution irresistible.
Mhm.
And we say, yes, let's pick up that charge. And our very first piece that we created in 2003 was a combination of our stories that linked in around the war on drugs. Alicia being from Colombia, South America, where there's a U.S. backed war on coca production, which has resulted in fumigation, violence, and dislocation of a number of indigenous communities and farmers from the southern region of Putumayo. And myself, as a Black woman living in New York, seeing so many of my community members being snatched up and criminalized for nonviolent drug possession or dealing as a result mostly of mental health issues, economic issues, or violence. And I was, at the time of meeting Alicia, doing workshops teaching poetry to women who were incarcerated in Valhalla jail. And every single one of the women that I met the course of that year was incarcerated for a nonviolent drug offense.
Hmm.
And it was getting really personal. And this is what motivated Alexa and I to start our first tour, which was really telling the stories of criminalization and also the environmental racism, the state violence and displacement that was resulting from these draconian drug war policies. And that initial collaboration turned into 16 years of combining our voices as well as our paintbrushes on murals, as well as our music and movement and collaboration with others in order to really share the messages that we felt were most vital for us to be organizing around, as well as the solves that our spirits need to stay motivated in times that are very challenging once we do have that awareness of what's at stake. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, feel free to ask another question.
Okay. Well, I was just, I mean, I was aware of your work around criminal justice reform and the importance of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there has been some progress in that area in recent years. There is a large movement around that now, thankfully,
Mm-hmm.
and I see some hope in that area. And then you both also talk a lot about agriculture. I remember at OAC, you two did a poem that talked about the soil and how soil, um, uh, how like the universe was in soil is what I remember. I can't remember all the words because I only heard it that one time, but it was like, oh, wow. I mean, I'd never heard any poets talk about soil the way that you two did that day. And so I'm very curious about
Thank
how
you.
how you guys actually work together. I mean, do you write something and do this by the internet, sending each other emails? I mean, how do you develop this stuff? It was marvelous.
Oh, thank you so much for the affirmation. And yeah, our collaboration has like different type of ways. Like I remember composing that very first piece that I was just mentioning. Um, I was living in New York and Elisa was living in Massachusetts. So sometimes we call each other and leave each other voicemails like, ooh, I got a verse, check it out, and we'd be like volleying back and forth, inspired to pick up off what each other were channeling. And with our production hurricane season, which we toured over 50 cities across the United States, actually on a bus we converted to run off recycled vegetable oil.
Hmm.
This was a piece that was talking about the unnatural disasters of climate catastrophe, of state violence, of environmental injustice. And we did a huge amount of research to pull this together because we really wanted to help connect the dots between the scenarios that we were seeing playing out in so many different parts of the nation and the globe. And we were doing interviews, we were looking at first-hand sources, we were reading a lot, we were watching films and documentaries. And so in this case, we really created a structure of the arc we wanted to take people on, a journey we wanted to carry folks on to be able to grapple with these intense and challenging issues, but stay open, stay heart open, stay connected to the people and entities and beings who are impacted, not get overloaded with despair and be invited into possibility, dreaming and visioning and into what is possible from here. And in that process, we had sometimes simultaneous writing sessions or separate and really work to weave our words together to make that piece come alive. Like, I remember literally printing out text and cutting it up into little strips and arranging it into a flow so that certain poems in there, Elisa's line happens for a few lines and then my line comes in and then she comes back in. With other poems that we performed, Elisa may have authored the entire thing or I authored the entire thing, and we learn each other's lyrics to be able to use each of our voices to strengthen the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see how you do that. What you'll be in the lead, and Elisa will come in and kind of add some strength by repeating the same words, and you do the same for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a beautiful thing. And the other thing that really struck me as I watched you, I mean, hip hop kind of started it in a certain way. It was the fact that you had these collaborations between many different artists simultaneously. The old paradigm is you have one artist, one poet doing their thing, but the just an element that gives me hope is this collaborative. This reflection of collaboration, which is what we need because the world is so complex and so difficult and the challenge is so big. We need like these aggregations of energies of different people working together. And your poetry is a perfect example of that. The way you guys work together and flow back and forth. And as you said, you have this African American upstate New York, urban New York thing. She has this South American vibe, and together it just it creates a really rich impact on the listener, I think. And so, are you how often are you touring?
Well, thank you for uplifting the importance of collaboration and highlighting that, because I really do believe that the ways that we can come together and combine our visions, combine something as intimate as our creativity is really great practice for the world that we're building together. And Alicia and I began just the two of us. And then the more and more we would tour and travel, we would meet other musicians and singers and be inspired about collaboration. And one thing that I've loved about our evolution is getting to bring in incredible vocalists like Tanya Abernathy or Sparla Squad, to bring in musicians like Sarah Tone, and like Jason Clivo said, be on our tracks with us. Our album literally was a collaboration of over 45 musicians and vocalists in addition to us. So each of these collaborations is like not only bringing together our skills in terms of, oh yes, Juliet Jones is great at playing violin, and we can get freestyle on the drums, but also about our unique contributions to a moment that we're in, because our work is so centered around helping to bridge us to a new era. It also feels like we're in this practice of showing up with our full selves, our spirits, and our gifts to contribute towards that goal. And after 16 years of touring incessantly, right, being in multiple cities and towns and stages, from festivals to concert halls to grassroots venues and going into schools and prisons, last summer, my intuition kicked in really strong. My ancestors were talking to me on the full moon last June, and I got a really clear message that for 2020, for the first time in 16 years, we should stop touring. And that instead of reaching wide and reaching many people in many places, it's time to focus on rooting deep and to trade the traveling, the touring, the incessant crowds for focusing 100% of my energy on land to help to fortify our sanctuaries at Wild Seed and Soulfire for the sustenance of our communities, and really sensing that it's time. Like, we've been sounding the alarm and signaling to people we all got to get involved and helping to get things right. And now it's time to focus on doing that work 100% of the time. And so this was pre-pandemic, pre a lot of things. And I feel so grateful to my guides and my ancestors for helping to signal me to that wisdom. Because had it been another year, any typical year, we would have been planning all last year for a tour this year that we would have been canceling left and right.
Yeah.
And instead, so grateful to be on the land, close to my family, and devoted to getting food to our people, still creating art and still sharing it virtually, doing virtual skill shares, the plethora of media and videos that we've created being a source of strength and inspiration for people in these times. And so, this is a moment of deep reflection and deep listening, while it is also a moment of deep activation inside of this work that hasn't stopped.
Wow. That is a tribute to me. This is how I take what I heard from you just now. The tribute to being in tune with the earth and with the life force that your intuition would and as you described, your ancestors would direct you. That is a beautiful thing for all of us to reflect on, how we can all get into that state, so that we might be more aligned and prepared for whatever's coming. That's a great bit of history right there about how that happened for you. And as you said, a lot of disappointment was avoided, because if you would have had all these shows lined up, a lot of people would have been disappointed. So,
Right.
but I do look forward to that ending so that you can come back here to the West, because I have this vision of some kind of an event out here where you come and bring some folks. I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Valerie June from Tennessee.
Yes, absolutely. We've been blessed to share stage before.
Oh my God, I am totally thinking she's I mean, I've seen her a few times in concert out here. I just have this image of some kind of an event with Valerie June and maybe Jack Johnson and you guys, and it could just be an incredible show out here that would be designed to support the food movement, because it's so inspiring for everybody. So someday maybe we can do that. So let's talk about the future of the food movement. I mean, you're digging deep right now because that's what's needed. I mean, when you muse or when you feel your intuition talking to you about the future, I mean, how do you see it playing out? Do you have thoughts about that? Do you see things emerging that you um, believe have wings that will really take off? Are you optimistic? I guess is what I'm saying. I'm asking.
Yes, I choose optimism as a practice of focusing my imagination on what I want to see happen and aligning my energy with a pathway towards it. It feels like a strategy
Hmm.
that helps keep me moving forward and helps keep me focused on what it is that I'm creating in collaboration with so many, as opposed to all the things that need to be destroyed and dismantled. And I can see ways that runaway, rampant, and racialized capitalism, the structural flaws in that system are already eroding. And it's not a given that we're going to get this right, right? Failure is an option.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I am optimistic that we will rise to the challenge. And I know it will take all of us giving all that we have in order to do that, to take care of ourselves, to take care of each other, and take care of our collective future. But I am hopeful. And in terms of the food system and what I imagine the future looking like is a world where we honor the people who grow our food, where there's an end to the exploitation of agricultural workers and all those who are responsible for bringing our families nourishment, experience a living wage and labor protections and health care and the work to what they are. I imagine that we have redistributed millions of acres of land so that we're upholding all communities' rights to the sustenance and strength that comes from that belonging. I imagine that we have eliminated food apartheid, that everyone has access to healthy, life-giving food, and that we're able to have the choices that allow ourselves and our children to have healthy bodies and healthy cognitive function in order to live their fullest lives. And that we're doing this in a way that we're healing the planet. You know, the current agricultural industry is a number one driver of climate change, of water withdrawals, of land use conversion, of loss of biodiversity. And I know that it is possible to feed ourselves without trashing the planet. In fact, with helping to do ecosystem services that actually are partly generating our habitat. And I see a world where those who are doing small, regenerative, organic agriculture are actually supported. The federal subsidies that are now going to monocrop corn and soy farmers are instead going to these small farmers that are doing these practices that are helping to make a more viable future for us all. And I see us thriving in that future. And I'm only speaking to one small part of food, and we have so many places to envision how we do things different, how we deal with conflict and violence in our communities without relying on punishment and warehousing people. As we think about, how we take care of our elders and how we, are living in less isolation and more interdependence and interconnection. I feel the pandemic is really bringing to light so much of what is essential and important and how we structure our ways of being and our practices. And so I'm full of dreams of how we organize ourselves to really honor each member of creation.
Wow, that's a beautiful vision. Inspires me, and it's a great way to set us up for a closing with some more of your spoken word. If you wouldn't mind, it would be a great way to end the podcast. If you have another piece you might want to share.
Thank you. Yes, I would love to share this piece that I actually wrote here on the land at Coal-Fire Farm and is inspired in part by one of our programs called Soul Fire in the City, where we support folks in our neighboring cities of Albany and Troy and starting their own home gardens. And we provide the lumber and soil and compost and seedlings and seeds, as well as guidance, ongoing and collaboration, so that they can grow some of their own food and medicine in place. And I'm really inspired by the community gardens and urban gardens that are existing. And so this is a shout out to all of those soil stewards and seed savers and provision gardeners out there.
Fabulous. Let's hear it.
Every patch of earth, unencumbered by concrete, where soil and atmosphere meet, be a portal to present, a terrain of remembrance, a vote for survival in an unpromised future. These gardens are blueprints of interdependent destiny, intergenerational memory, saving seeds for food as remedy. See, my people know what it's like to eat and still be starving. So we turn in hardship into harvest, lawns and schoolyards into gardens, homegrown bounty in our palms. We come from soil and stardust, and so we conjure. Giving props to hood magicians who grow provisions for our kitchens, we smuggle spinach into prisons, transform the places that we live in. Trade psychosis for symbiosis and stay focused. Sprout sunflowers that power our neighborhood blocks, harvest raindrops on rooftops to water our crops, propagate plant medicine to the metropolis, guarding our plots, because our gardens are not for profit or loss. Cross-pollinate the promised land. We got this. Take a deep breath. Restore calmness. With lemon balm bounty in our palms, hot peppers in our pockets, black-eyed peas spiraling up Lenape blue corn stalks with buttercup squash carpets, three sisters symbiotic, talking story of solidarity on native territory. Migratory monarchs transcend borders. Morning glories ascend fences. Pay attention to the lessons Mother Nature keeps expressing how to multiply our blessings. For justice and sustenance amid glaring disparity, every seed saved will set us free. In an age of opulence and scarcity, every seed saved will set us free. In a time of intensifying violence and climate calamity, every seed saved will set us free. Hold on tight to the source. We have all that we need. Ashe.
Ashe. Beautiful. Well, Naima Penniman, it has been an honor and a pleasure. And my heart is full. And I'm very grateful that you're on this earth working with others to inspire them with your words and your music and your activism, your organizing, your advocacy. So have a happy Thanksgiving or celebration of the harvest and holiday season. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the Bioneers Conference and your performance.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me. And thank you everyone who's listening for the sacred gift of your attention. And I'm so grateful that we're all in this together, each doing our part. And I just acknowledge all those who are working hard, healing, and working for change. And yes, blessings for Indigenous Peoples Day and giving thanks and celebrating the harvest of a tremendous year. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Hey, this is Michael. As you know, Flipping the Table is sponsored by Roots of Change. You can keep our program going by making a contribution to Roots of Change through our website, rootsofchange.org.